Uh, yeah, kind of. Well, they're college students, which means they are grown up. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mackenzie, I saw your name pop up, but it had you on mute.
Can you not hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta. Okay, could you try it now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. Got it all set up for my music. Wasn't planning on doing Zoom from home. So yeah, we're good and thank you. And hey, come here. Okay. And so I'm glad you're all here. And I want to introduce a very special guest, Akira, my granddaughter. Say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Yeah. So I was gonna come into campus after I picked her up from school, and when I picked her up from school, it started coming down, the ice and the sleet and adios. So let's begin. First of all, how you guys coming along with the papers?
What paper?
Pardon?
What paper?
Oh,
I was just about to ask the same thing. What paper?
well, then let's get to that first. Mm-hmm. Well, and assignments. This. And let me make sure we got the right share. This. So that's a notebook. Now I gotta pay attention here. Yeah, but don't bug me. So here are the instructions. You guys, nobody knew about this? I've been talking about it, and that's why I did the library search. We talked about research and how to do formal analysis and
I saw the assignment was posted like this during the weekend or something like that, but I
well, I
thought you were just gonna
changed
wait
the
until
date.
you
It was
introduced.
due the 21st, and I moved it up to the 28th because we were off on the 21st. So what should we do? Will you guys be able to get this done? See, it was available January 19th, so I can see how it slipped through the cracks. Will you guys need more time? Because, oh, see, there's the original due date, by the way. and it's available till March 2nd. So I can edit this. And see, I changed the due date to next week on Monday. Should I move it? Wednesday, March 2nd, we'll keep it available for a couple of days for the stragglers. And I'll edit this that says let's see. And save. And so partly why I wanted to move this up a little bit, this day off that we had on Mondays really upset the flow, and taking that day off. I've shown you most of this stuff. Let me show you this since we're talking. And let's get this on the share. And let's just do it as a slideshow. Okay, what I want you to have with this paper, and this follows the prompt too, at least 4 sources, 3 articles, and the textbook. Textbook's always a source. It's the source for the class. And here's how you put the information: author, title of article or title of the book, publication date, volume number, edition number, etc., etc. So that's why I had you guys do some primary research to search peer-reviewed sources, so you guys know what all of that's about. Let me show you the format for the bibliography this way. Books. This is how you enter the books in your bibliography. In your notes, that is the endnotes or the footnotes. This is the format, and you see both times. Author comes first, but you see that in the notes, it's an abbreviated. It's an abbreviated format. And so if you're citing something from Zadie Smith, put your #1 footnote where you're actually referencing that. And on this paper, you can use footnotes or endnotes. That's why I put this as notes. I don't care where they show up. You just have to give credit to your sources. And you can do shortened notes too, which is perfectly acceptable because you have this bibliography. This is the gold mine. This is the complete record of your sources. These are basically notes to show me that you're giving credit to these sources for the information in your paper.
So they're like a works cited?
Okay, I need to turn this up if I can. Because I'm not hearing you very well, unless I get maybe some headphones. Run that by me again, David.
So the bibliography is like a works cited
Yes,
section? Okay.
that is it. And the notes are the citations. And so in some formats, they use parenthetic citations, put a little parentheses and put Melville, close parentheses. But for notes, it's a little more complicated. But that's exactly right, David. And journal articles, this is pretty much what we were talking about when I asked you guys to do all of the cut and paste stuff that you guys did quite well with. I'm just checking. Looks like I got a Randus is here. Yeah. That's who's here. Sorry. But as I was saying, you can actually almost cut and paste. This URL is preferable to the URL that appears in your browser's address bar. This is the URL that's in the library search. And so, journal articles, here we go. This is just notes or the shortened notes that you put at the bottom of the page if they're footnotes, at the end if you're formatting as endnotes. And so now I got a potential, never mind. So this is pretty much right here what I was telling you. This is pretty persistent. So what we got, this is kind of what I asked you guys to do, which was why I asked you guys to cut and paste some peer-reviewed journal articles, and this is what it looks like. This is what you guys gave me. With the exception, I didn't put the abstract on there. But see, they don't want me to go there. So that's it. And why I'm showing you this now, and why I moved the due date up, is I want you guys to get working on this. And if you have questions about this, we can talk about that on Monday. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So hello. Hello. I got my granddaughter here. She's not doing a paper. She's actually drawing right now. So, and let me see. This the screen we want. We're good. And so let me talk to you about Rococo to neoclassicism, the 18th century in Europe and America. As you can see, we're talking America now because America is actually a thing, and it is an entity that is directly influenced by the Europeans. And we talked about this a little bit before we left last Wednesday. And I want to kind of start off with a little recap of the Baroque, because when a century changes, it doesn't really people don't pack up and do something differently. It's an evolution, and changes occur over time. And as such, we can actually track some trends in this European art that we're talking about. I like to think there are three major trends that encompass the 17th, 18th centuries: the Baroque period, the Rococo, to the neoclassicism. We're talking about 200 years here. But one of the themes that we see, one of the stylistic achievements, thematic achievements, is realism. That's something that shows up in the Baroque era. We start to see landscapes that are not of magnificent buildings or magnificent battles. Sometimes they're just landscapes of little town with the farms and stuff. We see still lifes, ordinary things arranged, nothing particularly royal, nothing particularly religious. We see that. And so that is realism, and we do start to see everyday people, ordinary people, people who are not saints or religious figures, biblical figures, royalty, clergy, just regular people. And we saw that with Vermeer. We see real people doing real things portrayed in a realistic sort of way. Realism, big thing. Second is the dramatic, the theatric. And we talked about that a little bit when we first looked at the Baroque. We talked about the theatric with, for instance, Saint Teresa of Avila. Theatric. Angels piercing her side with the spear. She's moaning. It's very theatric. We see a very theatric by the same artist, Bernini. We see a David that is swung around. He is about to throw that stone right at Goliath and kill him. We see a lot of theater. We see a lot of theater in the works of Peter Paul Rubens. We see a lot of theater going on, even in the works of Caravaggio. We see action. We see people doing things. And so theater, second theme. The third theme is a theme that has been consistent from the Renaissance, and that is fascination and inspiration from the classical Greek and Roman times. and it persists. We see that through the Renaissance. Obviously, we see Michelangelo's David that looks like a a Greek god, for instance. We see a lot of things. We see, was it Kaylee? You did Botticelli's Birth of Venus. Is that right?
I did for another class, but for our last test, I did the 3 stages of death.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you did for the first one, didn't you write about, pick it out and tell you why you liked it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well, that goes into, that's Renaissance art. That is the Birth of Venus. That is something that comes right out of Roman mythology. Venus is Roman, Aphrodite is Greek, but these trends continue. And so what we have here is more of this classical. Cornelia presenting her children as treasures, or the mother of the Gracchi. And basically what that means is that these children, the Gracchi, will grow up to be legendary heroes in the Roman Republic. But their mother is Cornelia, and she's presenting her children as treasures. We have this unknown figure here, and she has in her lap a box of jewelry. And you can see she's holding up all of this stuff and showing off what she has. And she has jewelry in her hair. Cornelia, not so much. She got a scarf. These are her treasures. This is her treasures. And it's done in the setting of classical architecture. This is called neoclassicism because by the time it comes around in the 18th century, it comes back in a new way. It comes back in for a different reason, not just for the glorification of the ancient cultures, but actually as a way of proclaiming values and a way of teaching a moral lesson. And that's really what's going on here. And we got some more moralistic neoclassicism. And so anyway, Angelica Kaufman, noted English artist, went to the Royal Academy, one of the earliest women to be accepted into the Royal Academy. And so neoclassicism, turn this page back. This is what we're talking about, neoclassicism. Now there's something else that goes on in the 18th century that's really kind of different. And it comes out of that theatrical, dramatic. And this is Rococo. And what this is excessive ornamentation. And how did this evolve? Well, I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago about the Baroque, about the Counter Reformation, how the Pope wanted to reestablish the supremacy of the Catholic Church over the rest of Christianity. And they started doing a lot of things like St. Peter's, like for instance, just the one that I was talking about a moment ago, the Ecstasy of St. Teresa. And you saw that, you saw the sculpture itself, but you saw the niche in which that was set, and it was excessively ornamental And it even had, I mean, just wild decorations, little cherub and seraphims around playful angels, floral patterns. These are the hallmarks of the Rococo. Now, the Rococo is excessive, and it's basically the art of the royalty. Now, the royalty have a lot to say in the 18th century, 1700s. Royalty is everything. We got King Louis the 14th, 15th, 16th. We got King George the Third in England. We have kings, queens in Portugal and Spain, and they commission this kind of artwork. And as you can see, excessively ornamental, ostentatious might be a word used to describe this. And even down to the chandeliers, like fine crystal, ornate, over the top, Rococo. And so if you hear anybody talk about Rococo, this is what they mean: excessive ornamentation, floral patterns, floral motifs, excessive, busy, ornate, and oftentimes gilded, where they actually put gold leaf on the woodwork. I mean, this is Rococo. And so if somebody talks to you about work being Rococo, that means that it is excessively ornamental. This is Rococo. Yeah, isn't that something? Yeah, I wish, no, that's not our house. Nymphenburg Palace, Munich, Germany. You see, we got royalty in the Austro-Hungarian, Germanic empires. And look, this is same thing. Go back, cherub, seraphim, floral, excessive design. Here we go. And probably, I want to talk about this a little bit. The Hermitage, Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great. Bottom line, the Hermitage was really a palace that was considered to be a summer palace. It's in modern day St. Petersburg, and it's a museum today. Bottom line is that this is actually a landmark in Rococo. I wonder if I can get this. It doesn't want me to link in anything. That's all right. Anyway, you'll have this at home. You can take a look at this. St. Petersburg, the Russian Tsar and Tsarina. Vienna, ostentatious. And this is a church done in the Rococo style, by the way. But sculptural decorations, floral decorations, everything ornamental. The Pilgrimage Church in Germany. You see, even the church is getting in on the Rococo style. This is a lot different than the Gothic. This is its own new style. And this is really where I wanted to get to. The Palace at Versailles. And this is probably, along with the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, this is the royal palace of the French king and queen. Let me run through this. Oh, that's the only slide I have of it. So anyway, I want you to know about that. I want you to know about the Rococo architectural style. And it's basically, as I was saying, excessively ornamental. And I know why it's not in here, because a lot of it started in the 17th century. But anyway. So this is one strain. This is the Rococo. And Rococo, I got to tell you, is not just architecture. And in fact, it's probably equally famous for the paintings that were done in the Rococo style. And as the buildings were a display of wealth, of power, of ostentatious beauty, the Rococo paintings end up being more like the lifestyles of the rich and famous, excuse me. And these paintings are really, in some kind of way, I know this is a stretch, but please bear with me. This is even kind of in its own way, much like Keeping Up with the Kardashians or some of those other, yeah, she's famous. But bottom line is that this is how the wealthy live. And this is the pilgrimage to Cythera, oil on canvas. And this is what the rich would do. And it's a pilgrimage to an island. And on this island, we have ancient Greek, relics, ancient Greek statues. And this is what they do. And then they, there are a number of versions of this, by the way, some with the ship in the harbor, but bottom line, they drop them off. And this was like, whoa, this is like the jet set. This is like the French Riviera. This is like Cancun or something. This is where rich people go to have fun at a time when ordinary people could not even consider having such a carefree life. And so what they like to do with this is that they'll put in these little signs and symbols and references to ancient European mythology, Greek goddess, cherubs. So you see a lot of the cherubs here represents Eros, or in the Roman tradition, Cupid. This is where all of these lovers go. They all have affairs, and this is the cruise. This is the 18th century cruise ship. At a time when ordinary people did not get to do that. But this is commissioned by the wealthy, and it is a painting of their excursion to Cythera, a vacation spot. This is, like I said, there's a number of these same paintings by Watteau. And I want to add a little something to that, is that there are a lot of theories here. You might run across them. And that is that in this time period, the art production, the people in charge of commissioning these artists, selecting the subjects, no longer was the church, obviously. It was the wealthy, and oftentimes it would be the alpha female in whatever situation. So the king would be out doing military stuff and, building buildings and doing colonization and business and stuff. And women, the wives, the royal ladies, were put in charge of making the art. And we know that to be true. And we also know that because of that gender role shift, we start to see a lot more women actually painting and making art. They didn't have this masculine sort of idea that men were the only ones capable of doing art, although this was done by a man, Antoine Watteau. But Antoine Watteau, l'indifferent. Whoa. This is a good example of what I was just talking about. This is a painting of a young man, but it is a young man who seems to be somewhat effeminate. He's actually kind of doing a little gender bending. And that's really what the title suggests. We were to talk about this subject today, we will be talking probably non-binary. You follow me with that? And you see people have theorized, I've read a lot of books on this, that this was a byproduct of having women basically in charge of the artistic production of the era. And so they didn't have all of these so-called masculine, testosterone-driven subjects that they wanted to see painted. They were much more open and not so much testosterone conscious, if you will. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, Rand, it's good to see you. Yes. Well, good. And so anyway, what we have here it's kind of what you might say is a really kind of different attitude about sexuality, about gender roles, and the wealthy are having fun. And isn't that cool? Well, this is another Watteau signboard of Joussin. And what this is a painting of kind of what I was talking about here. We have wealthy men, to be sure, but in some ways, these are like salespeople. This is an art gallery. This? That's me. What are you talking about? That's a doggy right there. Yeah. But you see, women are front and center here in terms of picking out the artists, picking up paintings. And you can see they're actually crating some of these paintings up to take back to the palace, which is excessively ornamental Rococo. And so you can see some of these paintings here, basically in kind of the Rococo style, but not kind of nondescript as well. So we have some cultural changes, and I got to tell you, I thought about this. I didn't bring it in, but there are Khan Academy videos on some of these, and one of them, Khan Academy did a whole 10, 15-minute video on this painting here, The Swing by Fragonard. And this is what I was talking about. This is a painting, and this is a garden. This is a wealthy person's garden, and we got the statues of the cherubs. You see this one. We saw that cherub before, Cupid. This is Cupid, and he's doing this. Don't say anything. This is an extramarital affair. And so what they're doing is having fun in this garden, and they're wealthy, and she's on the swing. And of course, if you're wealthy, you have somebody actually doing the swing for you, pulling your servant, your butler. And you see this guy is pretty well positioned to take a look right up her dress. This guy right here. And so, yeah, this is the affairs. Just like I say, we still do this in a kind of postmodern sort of way. We see reality shows, the affairs that go on, the wealth that is flaunted, or just take a look at music videos, and everybody's driving Lamborghinis with the gold wing doors, and got the bling, got the watch that costs like $10,000. I'm just saying. But at any rate, that's really the driving idea here. This is what's going on. And this is a very famous, anyway, bottom line is that if you get a chance, you're interested, take a look at this on Khan Academy. It's really pretty cool. And so the apotheosis of the Pisanic family. And so this is kind of a continuation. We've seen this in the Baroque era. We see it here. It's excessive ornamentation, the idea that the artist can paint an ascension into heaven. And this is an Italian Baroque. Rococo. And then I got a whole other thing. And this is nothing like what I've been showing you in terms of Rococo. Rococo. Like, yeah, we got a dog named Coco, short for coconut. Just saying. Here's what I want to shift gears with here. Joseph Wright of Derby, an experiment on a bird in the air pump. And you see, we see formally, we see some of the dark modeling that was developed in the Baroque era by artists like Georges de la Tour, by Caravaggio, this idea of a candlelit, dark modeling. Same. It's an extension. But what Joseph Wright of Derby is painting here is a science experiment. And the idea at least in theory, is that they're pumping the air out of the glass globe and the bird can't fly because the bird needs air under its wings. But you see, that's really what's going on. This is the age, no pun intended, the age of enlightenment. This is where science is really racing ahead. We see the beginnings here of what will become the Industrial Revolution. And this is still a little early. This is 1768, but by 1800, we're well underway. The steam power to science, technology, heavy industry. We see the steamboat. Decades later, locomotive, etc. But anyway, it's all based on scientific study, and that's what Joseph Wright is documenting here. And here is yet another Joseph Wright of Derby, a philosopher giving a lecture on an orrery. Now, the orrery is this. And what this is a model of the paths of celestial bodies, in particular planets. And that's what an orrery is. It's a kind of a model of the planetary system. And so a professor giving a lecture on the orrery, well, and he's got young people there. He's got middle-aged people there. We got a TA there taking notes, got the philosopher. And in those days, almost everybody that was learned was called a philosopher. This is where we get, this is the beginning of what we now refer to as a PhD. Philosophy doctor or doctor of philosophy. And you have, I'm sure, some professors that like to be called by their title, doctor, but they're not physicians. They don't do surgery. They do English and history and scientific experiments and all kinds of things. Because back in the 18th century, everybody who was learned was considered a philosopher. And in the old days, there was, you just got a PhD, you were a doctor of philosophy. And all of these other things were basically seen as branches of philosophy: literature, science, physics, so on. And so this is celebrating the age of enlightenment. And that's what's going on. The age of enlightenment. Are there any other products of this time? The age of enlightenment. Not necessarily artworks, but what was happening globally at this time. You can see this. This is engineering in a whole new different way. An iron bridge, that they were able to cast this iron and put this together. This is really kind of a new thing, because prior to this, bridges were typically made out of wood if they were not so good, and stone. And you can still see some of the stone columns here, but supported by iron. And so this is, like I say, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We start to see this change in technology, change in science, changes in a lot of things. And I wanted to see where I got this. I got this. Yeah. And so I moved ahead. I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more about the Age of Enlightenment, but the Age of Enlightenment actually spawns a lot of interest in the classical. And I showed you Angelica Kaufman. And a lot of these buildings that we'll see really reflect ancient Greek and Roman architecture. Richard Boyle and William Chiswick House is like very austere. We don't see all of the ornamental stuff that we've seen in Rococo. In fact, it's very austere by comparison. But we start to see these. This looks like right out of classic Greece, Temple of Theseus. This is in England, Hagley Park, Worcestershire. John Pitt, Rotunda, something that looks right out of the classical era. This is on the back of a nickel, by the way. Thomas Jefferson, Monticello. Just a moment ago, I asked you about some of the byproducts of the Age of Enlightenment and the neoclassical era. They went hand in hand. It became the official art of neoclassicism, was the official art of the, Age of Enlightenment. So our so-called founding fathers in the United States, they were well educated in the classics. They were educated men, and they knew about ancient Greece and Rome. They knew about these ideas of democracy. They knew about Plato and his famous republic. They knew about things like democracy from ancient texts. They knew this because they were educated. And this is in the University of Virginia, which, by the way, was established by Thomas Jefferson. Neoclassical architecture. Oh, I want to go back, previous view. I want to see if it'll give me this. And let me see if I got the right share. Yes, I do. Neoclassical architecture in Washington, D.C. Lincoln Memorial, Congress. Some of these I don't know. The Capitol, Jefferson Memorial. And so anyway, tons of neoclassical architecture. It was the official architectural style of the new republic, the United States of America. And they saw themselves as enlightened. They saw themselves as being like the classical philosophers of old, the learned. And so I got to make sure I got my share here. Yeah, we're good. But sometimes the neoclassical just doesn't work out like they planned. Horatio Greenough, George Washington. This is a huge statue. It's at the Smithsonian. 11 feet 4 inches high. Have you guys ever seen anything like this? Ever?
No.
Randus, not me either. Here's where I'm going with that. When Greenough made this sculpture, he made George Washington in the image of the supreme Greek god, Zeus. And that's why the pose, that's the clothing, bare-chested, and he's got his hand up, his finger up to the sky, because he's thinking lofty thoughts, and in the other hand, he has his sword, which means that he will fight if necessary. You know what people thought about this when he made this statue? They hated it. They hated it because the whole idea of a democracy was antithetical to making gods out of our leaders, especially even if he was our first president and first general of the army. They're not gods, they're people. We the people, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We don't have pagan gods. And so that's kind of some of the flies in the ointment, but I do want to kind of go back a little bit. And come back to England here a little bit. Wait, let's go back to France. Chardin. When I talked about realism, that's still alive and well. Grace. It's not royals. They're not having a vacation on the island of Cythera. The house is plain, everyday people, young mother, 2 children. Realism, that is still something that continues. That is something that continues. So, we talked about classicism going right through the ornate, the rococo, the realism. Let me show you some more. This is more Chardin too. And sometimes these are actually, people love these paintings, as do I. But they usually are like regular people doing everyday things. This is a bubble blower. He's got a straw and he's got some soapy water and he's blowing bubbles. And you might say, well, this is probably another rich person at leisure, except look more closely. His clothes are ragged. His sleeve has this big rip in it. This is not, it's not a wealthy person. And he's not in a place that's actually well kept. You see the stones kind of in need of repair. You see some floral stuff go on. That's kind of typical of the era. But realism, it lives. a woman drawing. And you can see here, this is a pen, by the way. It's actually a homemade pen. It's made out of a stick. And if you cut it properly, if you ever used pen and ink, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can dip the end of this. Usually they're made of metal today, but you could make these on your own with a stick. She's got her knife, she's cutting it, she's drawing. She's an artist. Still, again, not a wealthy person. Bottom line, realism. More realism. The Village Bride. Ordinary people, ordinary things. And it's kind of, you take a look at it, you know, it's ordinary. I mean, it's a place to live, but it's not in like, doesn't have all the floral motifs and the sculpture. This is how ordinary people live. And this was probably an inn or something like that, where a number of people stayed. But here we are. We have a lot of the people of the village, and inside their house, they got chickens. Chickens inside the house. Crazy. And the Village Bride, this has everything to do with this young man going to pay the dowry, if you will, so that he can marry this young woman. And you can see there's all kind of things going on, and she's like, I don't know about this, and she's got her best friend here, and it's not going well, and stuff. And ordinary people from the village doing ordinary things. Realism. And Vigée Lebrun, self-portrait. Vigée Lebrun, this is a young picture of her, 1790. She was the personal painter in service of Marie Antoinette, wife of King Louis XVI. And here she is. She's painting her own portrait. As we discussed, we've seen a lot of these. And it seems like the women almost always have to do self-portraits to prove that they were the ones that could actually paint. There was still a lot of sexism involved, but bottom line, she's the court painter for Marie Antoinette. And here is a portrait, Marie Antoinette and her children at the palace at Versailles, by the way. And you can see much different setting. Look at that carpet. Look at the pillow and the tassels and the finery that the children are dressed in and the finery she's dressed in. Some of the sculpture, some of the columns. Royalty. Nobile Goudiard, self-portrait with two pupils. Again, that was one of my points I wanted to make today. We see in this era, in this time, in this place, women producing art, participating in the arts in a way that we have not seen prior to this. We see the emergence of some women artists, Anguissola from Italy, the student of Caravaggio, and a few others from the north, but here we are. And so looking at my watch. And looks like I got all of you guys still here with me. Oh, Nathan's here. Joel.
Yes.
Just saw you. I'm giving you credit for being here. That's all.
Thank you.
Glad to see you.
You too.
So any questions? Well, when we come back on Monday, David, you got some?
No, but if I do have a question, then I'll probably just ask you through email or something later.
Okay, that's always an option. I'm good with that. So yeah, let's keep the lines of communication open. I want you guys to stay warm. We'll talk a little bit more about the paper on Monday. See, we'll help you guys get that all buttoned up. And so, thanks for being here. I just wanted to say one more thing, and I apologize for such late notice that we're doing this on Zoom. I've been watching the weather all day long, and they kept pushing the time back. It was supposed to start snowing at noon, then they said 3 o'clock, and then they said maybe not until 7. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go in, and people on Zoom can always go on Zoom, but I was afraid some of you may be headed to campus. I went to get my granddaughter from school. She gets off at 4, and the roads were really bad. So that's when I hit the message. I'm glad you got the message. Stay warm. Thanks for being here. I'll see you Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you
Thank you.
respond well through emails through Outlook or through the, what is it called? The Canvas inbox?
Canvas messaging is a good way to go,
Okay, cool.
but I respond to both of them. I got them both on my phone. So either way, but the thing about the Canvas is that if I got something here that I want to send back to you, I can do it pretty easily. Outlook is a little more complicated.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.
See you later.